The rocks and the riffles don't feel quite the same as I swim through this unfriendly place. So long in the journey and far from my home, but I still taste the tiniest trace. Raised in the headwaters, schooled by the banks, I leapt at my first chance to run. Lured by perils and damned by design, pulled by the moon and the sun. For inside my heart an ocean of dreams, and they always lie a little upstream. But someday soon the river will sigh and tell me what I want to know. Then the current will carry me home. Dangerous strangers with big toothy smiles are not like my friends back at school. So I hide in the shadows and run through the rills, a certified waterfall fool. Ospreys and eagles take wing overhead, that's a freedom I never have known. So I crash through the mirror as if I could fly, with my rainbow reflection below. For inside my heart an ocean of dreams, and they always lie a little upstream. But someday soon the river will sigh and tell me what I want to know. Then the current will carry me home.
You hills and dales and flowery vales that lie near the Murlock shore, all you winds that blow through Borden's Grove, shall I ever see you more? Where the primrose grows and the violet blows and the trout and the salmon play, with my line and hook, the light I took to spend all my youthful days. As I roved out to meet my love and to hear what she might say, and to see if she would pity me before I must go away. She said, I love an Irish lad, and he is my pride and joy. And ever since I saw his face, I have loved my sailor boy. Well, perhaps your sailor boy was lost while crossing.
A high priority policy for Raymond is to increase open space as stated in the 2004 Comprehensive Plan. The plan directed the RCC, the Selectmen, and the town to prioritize special areas for conservation. Many New England towns define their open space as forests, fields, farmland, trail areas, ridges, scenic vistas, wildlife habitat, wetlands, buffers around waterways, and preserves. In short, open space is natural, undeveloped land that has special quality. Creating a plan will help ensure that our most important natural areas remain intact for future generations, and will also allow us to direct growth and development to the most appropriate places. Without a plan, and with continued residential development, we could be left with a patchwork of disconnected land that has greatly reduced access, fewer recreational opportunities, and reduced water quality. To complete our open space planning task, the RCC developed the following initial goals. To develop an open space plan that engages our citizens in a process whereby we as a town can inventory and identify our most valuable natural resources, support and promote working forests, link open spaces, maintain and create trail systems to provide recreational opportunities, and to preserve our community character.
The process that the Raymond Conservation Commission proposed and is in the process of following is a three-step open space planning process. The first step is to set initial goals and to do a resource inventory. The second phase is to gather public input on specific areas or land uses that are important, and to fine-tune the goals and fill out the details of the inventory. And then the third phase is to develop specific recommendations and strategies for meeting those goals. What we will be reporting on in this is the first phase, the goal setting and the resource inventory. In order to do the resource inventory, we used geographic information systems technology. This approach allowed us to use many data layers that were available electronically from the main office of GIS and the main state planning office, as well as other sources. The inventory is broken into 6 main categories. Those include water quality values, habitat values, environmental and public health and safety values, recreational values, scenic and cultural resources, and land productivity values. The first inventory map we have before you is the water quality resources and values. In order to create this map, we took data layers that included all the water resources in the town, such as streams, rivers, and ponds, as well as areas of aquifer recharge and areas identified as having soils that had a high potential for erosion. All of those layers were mapped, and setbacks from the water areas were indicated on the map as well. In order to come up with a total value or a map depicting the total values of the water quality factors that were included in the mapping, we used the GIS to add whatever values were given to each one of those factors and then depict those in one final map that shows from light to dark those areas that increase in value. Essentially, this map shows that the areas along the Tenney River and along Panther Run have the confluence of the most open space values identified in our inventory and are particularly important from a water quality perspective.
An interesting note on this map is the dark blue in those areas, and that is driven in part by the high-value groundwater resource that exists between Crescent Lake and Panther Pond, and between Panther Pond and Sebago Lake. Other patches of high-value aquifer are noted also at the base of Raymond Cape and at the north end of Raymond Pond.
The second set of maps are the habitat inventory. This is data that was derived from Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and provided through the Beginning with Habitat program. These map rare plants, rare animals, habitat for waterfowl, habitat for deer wintering, and also unfragmented forest areas and large undeveloped lots. We also identified conserved lands and the areas of undeveloped land, particularly larger parcels, surrounding those already conserved lands, and map those.
We can note the high-value land areas that are focused around Morgan Meadow, around Gay Brook to the north of Raymond Pond, some areas at the base of Rattlesnake Mountain on the west side of town, and other areas on Raymond Hill and east of Panther Pond.
The data provided by the state indicates very few areas with rare plants. However, that does not mean that there are not other rare plants spread throughout the town. These are only rare plants that have been identified and confirmed and thereby mapped. Likewise, with the rare animal coverage or data, that is derived by confirming a sighting of some type of rare animal, and then a generalized location is indicated on the map. Taking the inventory data, we then created a total values map for habitat through the same process as previously described for water quality, so that this map indicates areas in dark green as having the confluence of the most numbers of habitat values or of highest priority from a habitat perspective. The next set of maps are those for environmental, public health, and safety. And the inventory includes areas of floodplain, areas that have wellhead buffer zones, all wetlands, including 75-foot buffers around the wetlands, and those areas of steep slopes. What is indicated on this map is the 100-year floodplain areas in gray. Those tend to be around the lakes, and particularly around Panther Pond and Panther Run. The wellhead buffers are identified as circles in a reddish maroon color. Those are scattered throughout town.
The circles represent a fixed distance of between 300 and 500 feet for a radius of protection around bedrock water supply wells. If you look closely, you can see protection areas around the two school wells and down at some of the summer camps where they have enough residents to qualify as a public water supply under the Maine Drinking Water Program.
The wetland values have been delineated by a process used by the State Planning Office, whereby they evaluate the functions of the wetlands, and the more functions the wetland performs, the higher rating it gets in general. We've identified those in the low to moderate category and gave a value of 2, and those in the high value category, which receive a value of 4 in our inventory. Those with a higher value appear as the darker green. And then around each one of the wetlands, there's a 75-foot buffer in recognition both of current regulations in shoreline zoning and also the value of preserving the upland habitat around wetlands, both for their functions in water quality treatment and for habitat reasons. The slopes are identified on an increasing scale of yellow-brown colors, with the darker brown being the steepest slopes, which represent slopes of 35% or greater. Those have been included in this map because areas of steep slope are prone to erosion, prone to landslide, and are generally considered inappropriate or difficult places to develop, and thereby implicate environmental, public health, and safety issues. When those inventory values are compiled together, the map looks like this, and is depicted on a scale of 1 through 7, with the dark colors being those of highest value for protecting for environmental, public health, and safety reasons.
The special areas, again, that jump out at us are the Bartlett Brook area between Raymond Pond and Crescent Lake, a patch of dark red at the north end of Raymond Pond in the Gay Brook area, certainly the Moose Meadow and Morgan Meadow areas in the northeast part of town, as well as wetlands along the Raymond Beach area and isolated areas on Raymond Neck.
The next set of maps are the recreational inventory. This map primarily inventories trails and parcels that are adjacent to conserved land that include public access. The trail mapping is incomplete, but it is data that's available currently. Trails that are included in this mapping are those that go through Morgan Meadow, the Rattler snowmobile trails, and then an assortment of other trails as well. One of the ongoing projects in the open space planning is to try to gather more trail information to put in this map and continuously update this map. Parcels that contain a trail have also been identified, and parcels which are adjacent to areas that contain a trail have been identified, reason being that they may be parcels that are key to creating a further trail network in the future throughout the town of Raymond.
As Raymond develops with more residential projects in the rural and rural residential areas, the disconnection of existing trail access has already begun and will certainly continue unless we pay close attention to maintaining trail networks and pursuing new trail connections in our most critical areas.
Another factor which may go into this map in the future, but which we have not yet mapped, are those areas that are already available for public water access or maybe potential areas for public water access. Through the same process as described for the other maps, we totaled the values associated with the inventory of recreational resources and identified those areas of highest value. On this map, they appear in the darkest color and are primarily located in and around the Morgan Meadows area.
Trail access is meant to include snowmobiles, hiking, skiing, snowshoeing, and in some places, ATV access. Clearly, as Raymond's open space plan is implemented, managing access on private and public property will need to happen on a case-by-case basis. But from the map, we can clearly see that there's great opportunity in Raymond to link large areas such as Morgan Meadow and areas to the west of it on Raymond Hill with large open spaces in North Raymond in the Gay Brook area and connecting as well to the west side of town to Rattlesnake Mountain and the Thomas Pond Route 121 pipeline area.
The open space inventory is not complete. We have gathered data and mapped information for 4 of the 6 criteria areas. We also hope to include scenic and cultural resources, things such as ridgetops and view sheds, and also land productivity values, which would include working forest lands, working farmlands, and high-value agricultural soils. An ultimate product of this mapping is to come up with a map that depicts all the values compiled together, so we are able to identify those areas of town that are of greatest value to the town for open space resource protection purposes. Since we have not finished all of the inventory mapping, all we can show you at this point is an early rendition of what that map may look like. But here, that map, an example of that map, identifies those areas that have multiple open space resource values, many of which are high values, and identifies those areas as being, by depicting them in the darkest green colors. Again, not surprisingly, after the inventory that we've looked at so far, the areas that stand out as being of great value to the town from an open space perspective are those areas around Morgan Meadow, areas around Gay Brook, and certainly the area around the Tenney River between Crescent Pond, Panther Pond, and the area around Panther Run between Panther Pond and Sebago Lake. As part of this project, we also have identified areas of developed land and undeveloped land, and categorized them in a variety of ways. This particular map shows areas of undeveloped or developable land in two categories: those that are over 10 acres with no buildings on them, and those over 12 acres with a building on them. Those are in light green and dark green, respectively. There are also a number of larger parcels that have some development but may have further development under current zoning. Those are identified in the maroon, orange, and pink color. And then finally, there are a number of lots identified in the darkest maroon color, which are essentially fully developed. In other words, it's got a building on it, and due to minimum lot sizes in the zoning, really could not have any additional new buildings placed on it.
This map started originally 3 or 4 years ago when we compiled large undeveloped parcels just to get a perspective on where Raymond's open spaces existed, regardless of what natural resources might be contained within the open spaces. It still provides a helpful guide of where Raymond has a lot of green space and where Raymond can and should be focusing its development.
Another set of maps that were done for the comprehensive plan were done by Bob Faunce to show the historic development patterns throughout town. This series of maps shows building locations at various times throughout history and where that development has occurred, with the final map indicating if, based on current land use patterns and projecting the number of buildings that might be built by the year 2040, what development in town might look like.